Okay, this term you're going to have several research problems that you need to work throughout the textbook in various modules. So what I want to do is give you an example, and I want to make sure you know that this example has errors in it. It's not the perfect example. I've actually put errors and problems in it to kind of help demonstrate what you need to do and what you need to watch out for. So this is not one that's assigned to you. This is one that's different. So this is from exercise our case study 8-12 in the textbook, a company called Diversified. And I guess long story short, this case involves certain inventory that needs to be written down, but the president, one of the managers, right, of the company, notes that in another area there was significant gains or inventory value that improved, and so the president's saying, well, why don't we just offset these? And they want you to do some research. Anyhow, that's not really that important for us because you're not going to do this one, but I just wanted to give you an overview. So you're going to use codification first of all. I want to make sure I'm clear on that. This is only going to be based on codification. Anything else that you use, Investopedia, Wikipedia, John Jones, CPA firm, doesn't count. Textbook doesn't count. If you're going to do research for a client, they want to know exactly what GAAP says and how GAAP should be applied, not what some website says. That's very important that you understand that. It's only going to be allowed. If you use anything else, you lose points, plain and simple. This is going to be in memo form, so just do a memo form. I'm not that worried about how you do the memo form as long as it's a memo form. Remember, you're doing this to the president of Diversified, so you would want to put that. You're not writing it to me, in other words. The first thing you're going to have is, and I have some comments over here, is where you introduce the problem, right? Give as much detail as possible. This example, not very good, to be honest. They gave some information, but the more detail, the better. Remember, if this was real, then you want this to stand on its own. And what I mean by that is anybody coming behind you needs to be able to read the memo and understand what's going on. You could get another job and leave, or you might be picking this up from somebody else that's left, and you have to carry it forward. Or there could be a legal case that comes about by this. And so the more detail, the better. It's really important. So you would want to, put detail about what's going on here. Introduce the problem. Then you need to determine the issue, right? So here I have the first issue, and I just used the verbiage from the book, is that whether an impairment should be evaluated at the total inventory level, a category level, or at an individual item level. So that's one of the issues. And notice I have the wrong font here. I see that all the time. We shouldn't be copying and pasting. I'm going to talk about that later. So all your fonts should be the same. Should look professional. So that's the second part. So describe the issue, right? Then third, you want to put the research that you found. So here's the problem, here's the issue, here's the research. So that's where you bring in what you found from codification, right? You do not use APA format. You use this format. You just put FASB, ASC330, in other words, where you found it. So let me show you. So, for example, here I'm in the codification again, and where I found the information. Maybe I wanted to use this as this is going to be my source. This is going to be my support for my what I want to advise, right? And so you take that and you see it's 230-10-50-3, and you just use that, FASB space ASC space, and then you would put the number there. This tells whoever where to find this in the codification, where it is in GAP. Here's another error that I have. This was copied, right, or quoted. Don't quote. I want to know, as it says over here, do not copy or paste a quote. I want you to put it in your own words because I want to see that you understand it, right? So you need to put it in your own words. Put it in your own words. I can't be more adamant about that, so that you demonstrate your understanding of it. So you have the problem, you have the issue, and then you have your findings. You haven't told the client what to do yet. Just because you found out, you know, what GAP says about that issue doesn't mean that you've connected it to the situation with the client, right? So then you go to this next area, right? This area gives you a correlation, all right? This, in other words, how is the issue connected to the client's case? Diversified carries a wide range of products. I do not feel that the character and composition of the inventory is such that the market declined utility appliance can be offset against the products of the other division. So when you go to provide the recommendation, right? When you go to provide here's your findings. Then you want to recommend what to do. It doesn't have to be this long, but when you want to recommend what to do, you need to be very clear about what to do for the client. Provide your recommendation of how to address the issue. Be specific. Think about it like this. The clients want to open the memo, right? Read it and know what to do. They want it to be straightforward and clear. That's why they're paying you. And if they read it and they don't know what to do, then when they get the invoice in the mail for, you know, your fees, they're going to say, wait a second, they didn't do anything for us. They found stuff, but they didn't tell us how to apply it. So the last section, which was broken down into two, is your recommendation, how to apply the information to the client situation, how to apply what you found to the client situation. That's your recommendation. Be specific. If there are other issues, then you just start with the second issue, and there were in this case, but I took them out because I wanted to. You probably won't have to deal with that in some of your work. You only have one issue, but if there's more than one issue, then you would say, here's the second issue, here's the research, here's my recommendation. So the same situation. Really, you need, you know, the facts, issue, the information from FASB, the research that you found, and your recommendation. Hence, do not reference outside information. I point that out. And then you don't put this down here. I'm going to include this for how I will grade it out of the 25 points. Right? So, sorry, ignore this part right here. That was from something else I had. But for us, we only have one, right? So one thing, 5 points out of the 25 says it's got to be in memo format. So that's easy. Next, you need to have those three parts. Explain the problem, research, and your recommendation. I said each memo should be 300 words, and it shouldn't be a problem to do 300 words. I mean, explaining the problem, when you put it, if you were to fill this out with more information, that would be close to at least half of that, right? So if you do a good job with the descriptions, then this won't be a problem, 300 words. But more than 300 words, I want to see those sections. I'll only count words if it looks really light, but if it looks okay, then I won't count words. But what I will do is look for those sections no matter what. Even if you have 1,000 words, I'm going to look for those sections. Speller and grammar count, right? Spelling and grammar count. I can't say that enough. Can you imagine getting a memo from your lawyer and it's full of typos and spelling errors, and you're going to, you know, base, you know, your decision on that? Yeah, I don't think so. I'm only taking off up to 5 points for that, but I think you can understand it's pretty important. And then reference your source, right? So I gave you the reference right here. That's how you reference it. If you don't reference it, you will lose points. And if you use anything else besides FASB codification, you will lose points. And that's it. So I think that's a good way to get you going. Don't worry too much about whether you get the right recommendation. It's not about being right, right? It's about how you apply it to this situation. That's more what I want to know is how you addressed it. Think about how many times two people read things and come up with different results. So, even though, the book may have a recommended result, a recommendation, if you clearly outline everything and your reasons for your recommendation make sense, then that's perfectly fine with me. I'm not so much interested in that. I'm looking for clarity and a clear connection and meaningful transition between each of these parts. And if that's the case, maybe you have a good point. Maybe your results make sense as well as somebody else's. So don't get hung up in what is right. And the same thing with the FASB codification. I'm not necessarily looking for if you have something that's a little bit different. We're beginning level here. I understand that. So if yours is if your codification is different, if I can see a connection and I can see where your issue, I can see a clear issue, and you can demonstrate how the codification meets that issue, I would be satisfied with that. So don't get too hung up on what's right and wrong, as much as being clear and following those parts and making sure that they connect to each as you go through the memo and work it out. In other words, it's more of a process that I'm looking to see that you're starting to develop, and a clarity of thought, right, than it is that you have found the exact part of GAP and your recommendation is exactly the same as the publishers. So don't worry about that part.